Welcome viewers, this is Tex of the Black Pants Legion, and now this is an interview. I've spoken with admins, hosts, developers, and other creatives behind Space Station 13 before, and they are notoriously antisocial types who generally don't like to talk with or at people for prolonged periods of time, as they are often judge, jury, and executioner on a server and can't be seen demonstrating favoritism. At least in theory. Anyways, here's how this works. I'm putting out an open call to any and all Space Station 13 admins on any public listed servers. The call is here, so answer it. If you're interested in answering or participating in an interview about Space Station 13, its history, and your server, please respond. See the description below for an email contact. I'll try to get to you and we can set something up. That being said, this is an interview with a Space Station 13 admin. The questions are largely freeform, and the discussion does not reflect exactly the policy of the server, unless otherwise stated by the person I'm interviewing. The reason I say this is I want to encourage an admin to be frank, honest, and open about their experiences without worrying that they're shitting on the server, or to prevent them from being yelled at for representing the community in a bad way. This is a point of view and not, I repeat, not an absolute definition of doctrine on said server. Disclaimer done. That being said, I welcome our interviewee. Please, internet person, tell me your name you wish to go by, your server, and your rank.
Hello, I'm Harcourt. I'm a senator from Lemon Strom, which basically is a mix between an admin, coder, and manager, where the senators basically run the server.
All right. So, tell us about Lemon Strom. What is its history? What makes it unique? Why should a player play there?
So the history of Lemon Strom is kind of complex, and it's a lot of drama behind it. So there was originally this code base done by somebody named Ava, which was I think, I wasn't around for that time, it was a Vietnam combat server. And then one of their developers, Ketchnov, who used to be a senator on our server, took the code base, started his own server. It was called No Man's Land. So then No Man's Land lasted for about a year, and then it collapsed. And then I think 6 months later, Lemon Strom started up, and that's where I come in. So Lemon Strom is a combat server, similar to Colonial Marines. Actually, it's very similar to Colonial Marines. But yes, it's a combat server, but we try to provide a mix of roleplay, combat, and strategic planning. So we provide players the opportunity to either, be a commander behind the battle scene and plan out and lead their troops to victory, or to be a frontline grunt and go in and slaughter some Soviets. We provide a lot of choice there.
So, why should a player play on your station/server? What really makes it interesting? Like, what do you do better than anybody else that you think is the greatest appeal?
I think what we do better than every other server, including CM, is really providing a choice between how you want to play. I think a lot of other stations do that very well, providing a choice how players want to play. But in the end, they get restricted to what job they choose. And in CM, you get, again, restricted to what job you choose. Some jobs, actually, like commanders, are, from my knowledge, put behind whitelists and whatnot, and only certain players can play. On Lemon Strom, we try to make it so that you can choose any role you want. You could be the machine gunner or the front, or commander, or the sniper or something. And it's up to you how you want to play that role and what you want to do. As a sniper, you don't have to constantly be standing behind the sandbags. You can move up front, or you can direct a small squadron of your men. We provide a lot of choice. And the styles of each battle is, again, completely up to the player. If you were to take our Restag map, it has when we developed it, we were expecting about 5 different ways to approach the battle. But as people played it, there's so many routes that people take and so many different strategies for doing the same map over and over.
So what would you say is the most common thing new players ask about your server when they first show up?
Have to be the medical system. Or what to do, because not many people actually play combat servers. There's about 2, I think, just CM and us.
There was briefly that Cold War server, like 1983.
Escalation.
Yeah.
Escalation was a shit show. Let's not get into that. No, yeah, there was escalation, but that was only up on weekends. But right now, at least, there's 2 combat servers. It's Lebenstrom and Colonial Marines. And I think when people join in, the first thing they need to get past is that, hey, it's not in space, it's in World War II. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of the jobs, because we want to provide players with the ability to play the job however they want, choose whatever gun they want, equip themselves. We don't provide objectives when you start up. So a lot of the times, if the commanding officers aren't doing a good job telling the troops what to do, we'll get helps like, what exactly am I doing here? So to combat that, we're about to release an update where you get a general overview of the map. When you start, it's like an image placed in your notes tab, that appears when you join the game, containing the map and a brief description of what this battle is about. So if you join in the Pacific map island, then it'll tell you, oh yeah, this is Americans versus the Japanese. The Japanese have a stronghold on the island, and the Americans will be boarding, etc., so that new players aren't constantly asking us, what am I doing here?
So tell me about the path that took you from being interested in the server to running the server to being an admin on the server. How did you reach this level of involvement?
So I started out when this was just called... Well, actually, I played Ava's Battlegrounds once, and I never played it again, but then No Man's Land came along. And I started as a coder working underneath Ketchnov, who was currently running the server with him, Techno, Seal, and this guy called Some Guy. And I joined as a coder / administrator. And over the course of 3 months, I think I became pretty good friends and a good ideas guy. I don't claim that I'm some master developer or whatnot. I am more of an ideas guy, but I really try not to take credit. Like, I didn't program like half the code like Ketchnov did. I mean, he's amazing. But I was more of the ideas guy, and I guess I rose to power just through, I don't know, playing the server and having a good idea of where I think it should go. And then No Man's Land collapsed, or sort of just, it collapsed. It had good pop when it collapsed. It collapsed a year ago, or year and a half ago. And then 6 months later, all the senators got together and like, you guys want to do this again, but better? And so we started up LEBENSRAUM with sort of this new atmosphere around it, to being more role-play-ish, more communication, more openness with the roles, better maps, more balance, whatever.
What would you say is the hardest part about being an admin, or most challenging difficulty with being an admin on your server, or at least being involved as far as you are?
The most difficult part, I think, besides the time commitment, because I have a job and I got to go there every day, and I have to immediately after check up and make sure the server isn't burning down.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a community that's famous for that.
Yeah, I think managing the community actually is the hardest part, because even our administration team, our judge team, our senators, everybody has very different views. There's no one cohesive message throughout the administration. People have different ideas, and that's great, but that does lead to a lot of conflict. Not really infighting, just disagreements and whatnot. And I have to act as the impartial moderator of these discussions and make sure that nobody kills each other and that there's no drama and everything can run smoothly. That's probably the hardest part.
So, what do you say, if you had to say, is the greatest challenge you ever faced as an admin personally? And I mean singular challenge. What was the most trying day you've had?
Ooh. Well, there's an event I want to cover. I don't think it's the most trying day. I'll cover this at the end of the interview, but my most trying day as an admin, that would be when one of our administration team members, I'm not going to say any names, but he started going around and abusing his powers, and eventually both the judge team and the head admins found out about it and called him out. And I was really, really, really good friends with this guy. I mean, he was really cool. He would get on voice chat and start playing songs and stuff. It was great. But I never knew he abused his powers the way he did and how much of a shitman he was. And having to basically ignore his DMs and say, sorry, man, you're not really welcome on the administration team anymore. And that's that. That was probably the hardest.
What do you think is the greatest challenge with Space Station 13 today, at least from the perspective of your server? These are uncertain times we live in, as I'm sure you know. But
yeah, definitely.
What do you think is the greatest challenge with Space Station 13 today?
Besides getting another not shit engine to run this on, I think the largest problem with Space Station 13 today is the community. Not that they're bad people, but just like our administration team, everybody has really, really, really different ideas of how they want their servers to run, or what they think people should act like. And you can see that in the server list, when you have the top CM, which believes of this sort of controlled environment of the Marines. You have skill checks on the certain things and whatnot. You have Paradise, which is incredibly high role play. You have to act in character. And then you get, crazy stuff like Citadel, which is furry ERP. And you have Vor Station, you have Hippie Station, where you can say whatever you want. And you see these conflicts when drama arises. It's not just about how the server should be run, it's about how the code base should be treated as well. When the Colonial Marines code got leaked, which I'm sure you are aware of, it was more due to how somebody thought the Colonial Marines people should treat their code and treat development of their server. They didn't want it to be closed because they felt other people that aren't on the CM team worked on the code before them. And so the changes that they make should be public to everybody, something around those lines. But I just think the different ideas that everybody has and the lack of diplomacy. I know there's host chat, but even then it just seems to be a breeding ground for drama. The lack of cohesion between everybody, that's probably the largest issue.
How do you combat special snowflakes that visit and or live on your server?
Live. So the special snowflakes you can see are... I'm trying to think of a good example. We've had a few. It's not very common. There's a couple people that come on and play a consistent character with this immense, deep backstory, and it technically breaks the server rules, but their excuse is, for example, this person wanted to play as a female German soldier, which isn't allowed because there were no females in the German army on the front lines. And to give some players some exceptions, we allowed German doctors, or that are female. And I think female nurses and whatnot. Those are the only exceptions we allow. But this player was like, hey, can I play as a female hiding in the German army? And at first we were like, sure, that sounds good. That's cool. And then this player, every time they got caught being a female in the German army, would whip out their pistol and, murder the entire German team. And their excuse was, well, wait, but they found me out. They were going to kill me, In every round, they played us as female in the German army. And it's like, you know what? Fuck it. We just kicked them out. There's not many special snowflakes in LEBENSRAUM.
What is your opinion of people who play on your server and record or stream?
Oh, we have no problem with that. Metagaming is not really a thing. And we don't actually have that many rules against IC and OOC. It's never really a thing that we punish people for. So streaming is never a big issue either. We encourage it.
All right. What is your opinion on metacoms and metafriends? I know that each server has some, but you don't see it as a problem if people are discussing the round, perhaps in a group or working with voice chat?
Working with voice chat. I think you can have meta friends. We have people where they're siblings or they're friends. They play together every round. They join the same team. They sometimes ask if the auto balance assigns them to a different squad. Like, hey, can you move me to squad 2, please? Because I want to play with my, sibling. And that's all fine. Because rounds last basically a maximum of an hour and a half. We've had 2-hour rounds before, but it's uncommon. And the player's general lifespan is about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how good they are. It's never a huge issue because you do respawn in, I think, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how long the round has been going for. But I think if you're griefing with metacoms, that's a different story. We definitely do not want people, getting on comms and coming on our server and then murdering everybody in cohesion. So,
what do you think makes a good admin good? What is that defining aspect of good admins in your experience with Space Station 13 and your server?
On, I think, all servers, it's the ability to extract yourself or subtract yourself from the round and act as solely an administrator and not injecting yourself into how the round is playing out. We had issues where admins would favor one side, either the Germans or the Soviets, or maybe the Japanese over the Americans or something like that. And they weren't exactly giving them benefits, but they were spawning items or making events happen that somehow swayed the round to the side of the one that they chose. And that's something we definitely don't want in an admin. We want somebody who can just, you can play the round as you administrate, but you have to act impartial and just as a mediator. Have favorites.
What makes a bad admin bad, though?
Emotion. Not that they need to act like Spock. You can have emotion on the admin team, but letting emotion influence your decisions. If you get really, really emotional, really, really angry about a player, and then you just permaban them for life, that's not a great admin. That's a bad admin. You want somebody who can review the evidence and decide the best course of action without letting either personal biases or emotion take over them.
So, on the nature of balance between the forces on your map, let's say the Germans or the Russians or the Japanese or the Americans, what makes each side unique in your little server of World War II?
Ooh. So, besides weapon types, we make sure that every side has weapons unique to their faction. So the Japanese have Japanese rifles and pistols, and the Americans have American guns, American rifles, machine guns, whatever, and it's all named. And we have this guy, we call him the lore expert, and he goes over all of our damage stats and our information about the guns and make sure that it's historically accurate. But we think having the guns is important, that provides a little bit of uniqueness to the sides. But what's more important is, I think, the command structure of each side and the little bit of rules regarding them. So, for example, on the American side, we have this no war crime rule, where you're not allowed to just execute prisoners of war. You're not allowed to kill civilians for no reason, or not no reason. You're not allowed to kill civilians at all. While on the German side, your rules and codes of conduct is a little bit more lax. You're not allowed to kill your own team, as an officer. You can't just execute people. But the rules against prisoners of war are more lax. Well, you're encouraged to take them. You're not forced. But then on the Soviet side, there's basically no rules against killing your own men if they show weakness or retreat, depending on what you say. And there's kind of no rules against killing civilians, or the casualties are accepted. So we think that we tailor the rules for each faction differently so that they all have a unique experience.
And you have a historian to help out.
Yeah, we have like two. One of them is currently on leave, but the other one, he loves World War II and the history of it and whatnot. And so whenever we introduce a new feature or whatnot, or a new gun or a new kind of like anti-tank bomb, he's constantly reviewing our stuff and pointing out inconsistencies and stuff like that.
In your opinion, what would you say is the best experience for a new player? What sort of role should they throw themselves into when they join your server?
Definitely not a commander position. It's not hard to be a commander, but the entire team relies on you. And if it's your first time playing Lebensraum, you don't know the map, you don't know what the rounds are like, and you join as commander, you're like, oh yeah, everybody, charge the Soviet base, let's see what happens. You're going to ruin the round for everybody. Your team's going to get wiped out, and the round's going to be over. But if you were a new player and you're looking for a good experience, really, any of the non-officer roles and non-medical roles are very easy to learn. The crafting system for engineers is very straightforward. Constructing walls and barricades and whatnot. The combat system is also very straightforward, though some people might not know what to do when their gun is jammed. But it's kind of self-explanatory once you just mentor help it and a mentor responds to you. There's always one on. I think the best role, though, overall, would definitely just be a common soldier. It's very simple.
What is your favorite round you've ever watched play out on your server, and why?
Oh, I gotta think about that. There's been many really great rounds. I think the best artificial round with admin intervention was a year ago when this thing was still called No Man's Land. And I had a thing for clowns and mimes, right? I thought that was the funniest stuff. So at the beginning of the round on the German team, everybody got a clown hat, clown shoes, clown outfit. Or actually, no, not a clown outfit. Clown hat, clown shoes, and a gun. But when it fires, it makes a honking sound. On the Soviet side, nobody was allowed to talk. They were completely silent, no footsteps. Everybody got a mime mask, and their gun was also completely silent. It was pretty great. So yeah, mime versus clown wars.
How'd that play out? I just like to know. I mean, was silence the benefit on the battlefield that everyone presumes it would be?
At first, no. The Soviets had no cohesion. They didn't know what was going on because nobody could talk. But some players really liked the miming aspect, so they would like mime out different stuff and like the orders and things like that. That was really fun. But silence did really help when you can just walk around a German patrol and then go walk straight into their base and kill everybody completely silently. Nobody knows that it's going on. So yeah, silence was the best.
So what would you say is your favorite event, since you guys do sometimes intercede and screw around and have fun?
We try to keep that to a minimum, and if we're doing some sort of shitty admin event, we'll let players know if they don't want to participate or they don't just let them know that you're not going to be having a normal round. So try to keep it down. Don't get so invested because you don't know when the server might crash. Our favorite admin event was when we did this thing called the Pillar Map, which there's this anime that some of our senators actually watched, and they were very invested in. Like, what would be really cool if we made a map about it. So there's this scene where the German army goes off against faces off against these mythic beings called the Pillar Men, and so we decided to recreate that in Space Station 13, and it was pretty great. I can't explain how funny it was. I don't think you've watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So
not my speed, but maybe the audience has.
If your audience has watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they'll know what the Pillar Men are. I bet they'll find it pretty funny.
So what is your approach on answering prayers within a round?
When you actually submit a prayer, when the admins get it, there's a message beneath it, which says something around the lines of, do not respond to a prayer with anything that would benefit one side or person. So if the prayer is like, help me, I accidentally took a grenade and blew myself up, yeah, we'll heal you. It's no big issue. But if it's some Soviet shot me and now I'm dead, please revive, we're not going to heal you there.
So Do you usually play Space Station 13? What servers, what jobs, and why?
So I don't only play Lebensstrom. I do play a lot of other servers, mostly TG. And on TG, I like to play either assistant or lawyer, mostly because those jobs allow me to play it how I want. As a lawyer, I could act as either a lawyer to criminals, which is always very fun, or like some sort of democratic mediator on the station and have like a court. But as an assistant, I can do whatever I want. I could be, the local drug dealer, or the thief, something like that. You have a lot of choice.
So, as an admin, how often do you press buttons?
A lot. Admin panels on our server are pretty big. But as a senator, we have access to the server controls. So in case something breaks, like the auto balance or the reinforcements process, I am going to have to go in there and restart the job control or restart the reinforcements controller. So yeah, there's a lot of buttons.
What's the most rewarding part about being an admin?
When you have a community, I think that's the most rewarding part. When I see the same people playing every week and I get to know them, and it's sort of like a friendship. That's the most rewarding part. I don't really care about having a high population. I'm all right when we're sitting at 20 pop or 30 pop or something. Because the people that play is a player base. It's consistent people. And that's the best part about running the Space Station 13 server. And the most rewarding part is when you see people liking your server, coming on every week, talking to you, talking to the admins, and liking the community. That's the most rewarding part.
In your opinion, what is the best map on Lemon Strom?
Ooh, that's a tough one, and nobody's going to like my answer. I think... City is really fun. That's a classic. City's always been around. I think City is a good size. Some maps I think are a little bit too big, and if it's not high pop, then people are going to be wandering around. But City is just in the middle. There's a lot of stuff you can do. There's some really good things for civilians, like different shops they can set up in, and the Red Cross is in that map, so you can play as a Red Cross person if you want,
If you could say one thing to new players who show up on Lebensstrom, what would it be? If you could communicate one thing to them to help them have a better time or stick around, what would you say?
That's a tricky question. Don't be afraid to ask for help or ask for guidance, because nobody gets mad at you when you're like, hey, I don't know how to do XYZ, or oh, I accidentally set off a grenade and blew myself up. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It might seem confusing and daunting at first, but everybody in the administration team knows what they're doing and is happy to respond to you.
So, as I'm sure you well know, the Space Station 13 community is defined by many, many different things. One of which, principally, being drama. But
yes,
what would you say is the cause of the drama, or at least the perpetuator of it?
Anonymity, maybe. Everybody's anonymous online unless you get doxxed. I don't know who Joe Schmo is over there on TG Station stirring up drama. So when you have that veil of anonymity, you can do whatever you want. There's no personal consequences until there is. There's been cases where big people have gotten doxxed and their lives could have been ruined by Space Station 13 players. And they shit around or do bad things because they think, oh, I'm anonymous. What's the worst that could happen? I think that's the main perpetrator of drama.
Do you think that drama is something that is inherent to the Space Station 13 community, or do you think it can be outgrown, perhaps?
That would mean that every closed source server besides Guden Station would have to go open source, because there's too many weird loopholes within the GPL license, which causes a lot of drama by itself. Additionally, you would have to have some sort of like maturity barrier, because some people do only go on Space Station 13 to start drama and to start fights because that's what they like. If you kick out people that aren't mature enough, that would be nice. But you can run your server how you want. So if you like immature players or you don't really care, then it's not my choice to kick you out of the community or something like that.
So let's talk about another hot button issue, and that is the inherent curse of Space Station 13. When people try to recreate this game on a variety of medium, specifically when you look at big studios or even small groups trying to play this, the commonality is there is a failure. Double Fine had Space-Based DF9. That didn't work. Dean Hall did Ion. That didn't work. There's Stationeers, which is early on and also very low population. There's Unity Station. There's SS3D. There's all of these many various attempts to recreate Space Station 13. Do you think that they're all bound to inevitably fail because they're trying to recreate the game? Or do you think that this is something that can be done or will be done?
I think all the ones right now, maybe not Unity Station, are kind of bound to fail. I was actually on the development team with Unity Station for a bit, and what killed them, or something in a downward spiral, was drama. Some head coder got really pissed off with the domain admin and deleted the Steam or something like that, and the server failed. But I think the issue with trying to create Space Station 13 or recreate it is you're trying to recreate the game. You're not trying to recreate the engine. Every Space Station 13 game is going to fail unless they focus originally on recreating the Beyond engine, because that's what Space Station 13 runs on. If you can recreate that, then yes, you can recreate Space Station 13. Because the way that modern code works is it just can't really handle the immense atmospheric simulation or the really deep chemistry and things like that. Actually, Kachnov, one of our main guys, he actually left recently, but I got word from him he's actually working on a recreation of the Beyond engine himself. So hopefully that goes somewhere.
So, as we've reached the end of the interview, do you have anything you want to communicate to the Space Station 13 community? Shoutouts, apocalyptic warnings, requests, and so on. The time is yours.
Ooh, great. Well, the end is nigh, so keep that in mind.
The end is nigh, all right.
But also, I would like to address some drama that happened about a year ago.
Please.
Regarding me and the Lemon Strom community. So last year, I think a year and 2 months ago, something like that. I don't know the dates, but there was some drama that emerged on Reddit, where somebody connected my Reddit account they connected me to a Reddit account with a bunch of old posts on it. And yes, that was my Reddit account. And they found some posts that I made where basically I called out a bunch of people. I told some kids to kill themselves. I was doing some really nasty stuff on Reddit. And I'm not here to justify that or say, oh, it was okay because, XYZ. But I kind of want to own up to it and say, yeah, I was kind of a shitty person back then. And I did make some bad decisions. And I do regret what happened. And I wish that anybody who remembers the drama and sort of see me in a different light, maybe. Something like that.
Well, I think that a lot of people don't understand that there is a perspective balance in many things. If you can just see things just for a moment outside of your own narrow, fixed view, you'll find that the other side of the coin also has another side.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. I had my problems. I'm not going to justify it or give an explanation, but back then, people had problems. Not everybody's always going to be a really nice person, but that doesn't mean that also means that when somebody makes a bad decision or acts like a bad person, they're not always going to be a bad person. People can change. And if you can look at somebody and step in their shoes, and maybe they're being an asshole for a reason, or that's not even a good way to say it, but you can't assume that because somebody does a bad thing, it's just because they're a shitty person. There might always be something behind it.
I understand that all too well. Anyway, sir, thank you for the interview.
All right.